Hey guys, sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm left by myself with this one, sadly, as uh, Pinky is unwell. Can't do the show right now, but she's here with us in spirit. So, he's all left with Caleb, sadly. Uh, However, today I have been thinking about a brilliant thought, the most beautiful thought, and that's the end of the world. All that fun stuff. See, for those who know me, I'm not the most positive guy when it comes to world outlooks. I think we're kind of buggered. It's all gone to shit. And with the climate we're in, we're kind of expecting it, both uh, both political and further, as most people would likely agree. So I thought today would be a good day to talk about the many times that we've actually been so close to the end of the world, and yet no one's noticed. No one's noticed, and yet if it was for one meager little difference, we wouldn't be here anymore. So despite where we are now, we are quite lucky to have what we have. First off, it starts with one of the earliest records of this, and this is a threat that comes out of space. So This was first observed in August of 1883 by a famous, I believe, Italian observer. Uh, Someone who looks at the stars and all that philosopher. The thought of it escapes my mind. But yeah, one in the morning on August, he is looking out with his telescope and he sees these strange objects in the sky. He sees UFOs. So we're already starting with the juicy stuff. Well, uh, ah, sorry guys, something's happened. I don't know what's happening. Oh, what's happening? Fixed. Oh, God, I had a heart attack. Another technical difficulty. But yes, back to the story. So, because of the time that uh, it was at, there was no real explanation for these strange objects that were floating in the sky. Uh, but and because of that, they were dismissed. Probably birds in the sky that are coming out fuzzy, or some other explanation for it. But after years of research, it was found out that what this philosopher probably saw was a comet that was within our own atmosphere, and it broken up into such a way that it just missed us. The shattering of this comet managed to slingshot every little shard of it out of our atmosphere, yet it was close enough for us to see. Now, this is extremely lucky because with the size of this comet, it was not small. I can't remember the exact size of it, but it was not something to be taken lightly. As a result, if even any of these shards of this comet fell and hit the Earth, it would cause massive devastation. And if all of them hit at once, that was the that was had the ability to be an extinction level event. And we have so many of these events that we've narrowly missed or are counting down to. And a lot of it is nature, stuff like this. I mean, look at Yellowstone Park. Yellowstone Park, for those who don't know, is actually what is known as a super volcano or a mega volcano. And it sounds just as badass as it sounds saying. It's labeled on the can. It's a volcano that is so big that if it erupted, it would cause worldwide devastation. And the worst part is these things require a certain amount of explosions to happen. They have to erupt every so while because pressure just keeps building up inside of these volcanoes. And Yellowstone Park is more than overdue for an eruption. So we're sitting on a ticking time bomb. Well, not we, I live in England. So, but if this thing exploded, I wouldn't even be safe. The ash from this volcano would cover the atmosphere, not allowing any sun to get in, making agriculture pretty much impossible to keep up with. Sadly, nowadays, with the ending of World War II and the dramatic ending it had, not all of the world-ending events that we come across are natural disasters, if so. Some of them are the threat of such things like nuclear annihilation by pure accident. Because as much as we like to believe we're in control of things, we're not. Humans make mistakes. It's in our own design. Our own design in itself has a lot of flaws within it. And there has been a few times in our history where we've been so close to going to nuclear annihilation over mistakes. And a good example of this is during the Cuban Missile Crisis, an already tense situation during the Cold War that was already in itself so close to lighting our own annihilation. During this, barricades were put up around Cuba to stop Russian assets from traveling between Cuba and Russia. And during this barricade, the dreadnoughts that were used to create the barricade noticed there was a Russian submarine nearby that was still submerged and refusing to come back up. So to try and get their attention, one of the commanders ordered low-pressured explosive devices to be dropped into water to gain the submarine's attention, so that we would have to come up to figure out what's happening. Explosive devices that weren't powerful enough to cause that much damage, but were powerful enough to gain the attention of the Russians that were hiding in the submarine. Well, the captain of the submarine reacted to these small explosive devices not as kindly as the Americans were hoping. This captain's first reaction to the explosive devices that were being dropped on him, which understandably is an understandable reaction, he thought this was an attack, and that in retaliation, the best thing to do was to launch a torpedo that had a nuclear warhead on it at the barricade. If this had happened, that would have been the nuclear war started. Cold War is over, nuclear annihilation. However, thankfully, two of the superior officers did not agree with this order and ordered the captain to make a different decision and to resurface and figure out what was happening before he reacted. If those two other officers didn't stand in and just stood by and allowed this to happen, that would be our annihilation right there. And that isn't the only time something like this has happened. I apologize. I'll take a drink. Ignore the fact that I've just dropped water on myself. Because I'm a big boy now, I promise. I do not make messes. To stop these escalations from happening by accident, while also creating psychological warfare between the groups, American bombers would be scrambled and flown towards Russian borders just to turn around at the last second. This would obviously be a form of psychological warfare in which it was constantly keeping both sides on edge. We could attack at any moment. keep yourself on guard. So, to counteract this, the Russians had a sort of warning system built up somewhere within, I believe it's either the Icelands or the Netherlands. This warning system would detect any incoming threats and give a numbered warning depending on the level of the threat. Low level threat, like a single plane or something that could be a large unidentified flying object just by itself, level 1. More planes and other objects seen, that would have been level 2 and higher, until it escalated to the highest level in which it would get the highest reaction. Well, one day, this alert system started beeping. This alert system then started going to the level 1 emergency. So low level threat, few bombers. It then went to 2, to 3, and then higher. This started to create a freak out within the Russians until they realized there was a Russian politician who was prominent and currently visiting America. So it wouldn't make sense for them to create this attack and have this reaction while there was a Russian politician over there. So they hesitated, and it turned out to be a glitch within the system of some sort, in which the radars were detecting foreign objects within the sky, whether it been birds or even something within the solar radiation that was affecting it. Because there's been many times in history that solar radiation itself has almost caused nuclear war. There was a day within American history in which, during the Cold War, out of nowhere, most military communications stopped working. It wasn't just a small area, it wasn't just one small zone or occasional devices, occasional villages, so everything stopped working. So the Americans started to think this was an attack by Russia. They were jamming their electronics, they were deeply messing about with their country. And obviously, their first reaction is to try and think to launch nukes. However, literally a few years beforehand, a completely different research group was funded that researched the effect on solar rays and solar storms on the Earth and on our electronics. And it turned out, on this day, a solar storm had unleashed itself and hit Earth. However, it wasn't that powerful. So for a full day, electronics were out. It affected major electronics, and it caused a lot of panic. But if it wasn't for this one little piece of research, the Americans wouldn't have had any clue of why this was happening. But not all of it, not all of these nuclear disasters was started because of miscommunication. One time, there was a American bomber that was transferring some nuclear cargo, multiple nuclear bombs. For one reason or another, this plane went down, and the plane and the cargo itself, being nuclear, landed on American soil. These bombs were so close to going off that 3 of the 4 safety pins had been triggered. And the only thing stopping the 4th from being triggered was a slight break between a wire. And when I say slight, I mean literally paper thin. We were literally a wire's away from nuclear annihilation because of one crashed plane. On the bright side, however, there is also apocalypses that we can't stop. Times in which we have been so unbelievably lucky that we have been literally hours or days away from an apocalypse and we've missed it. Everyone remembers the original joke, don't they? The world was going to end in 2012. Oh, I wish it ended already. It's been dead. It's felt like we've all been dead since then. All those good memes. However, in 2012, we were very close to an apocalypse. Now, this wouldn't have been entirely world ending. We wouldn't have been dead, but the world as we knew it would have ended. See, during 2012, there was an extreme solar burst from the sun, a solar storm. This storm was coming straight for Earth. However, it was 6 hours ahead of our own orbit. If we were simply 6 hours ahead of our own Earth's natural orbit, all electronics would have been gone for centuries to come. Electronics wouldn't work. All of our infrastructure would cease to exist. Transport, money, finance, all the bank records that all the banks hold of everyone, it's gone. That digital money you have is gone. Anything that isn't real is useless. Digital data ceases to exist. Cars will not start. Planes would have fallen out of the sky. Anything that required any sort of electrical power would have stopped working for centuries. We would have been taken back to the Dark Ages, and that would have been 2012's apocalypse. Yet we were 6 hours behind schedule. We were just literally less than a day's away from apocalypse, and we escaped it out of pure luck, out of pure chance, purely because the cosmos said we were there then, not right where the solar storm was. And it's shit like that that I find absolutely fascinating. The times that we've had these unexplainable moments where we've been so close to our own annihilation, and yet we've somehow missed it. The apocalypse has been told to wait another day. As destructive as we are somehow still survivors, in a sense. I mean, we're surviving our own lifetimes. We're surviving triple a lifetime. Overpopulation is a thing. This is causing the apocalypses that we're seeing now. Famine, destruction of our rainforests, overpopulation, global warming. All of this is a slow burner compared to the quick firecracker that our ends could have been. There's been plenty of disasters in the past that have been ever so slightly averted, and we just forget about them. For example, during the 18th century in Serbia, in the tundra where it's nothing but ice and forests, there was a massive explosion one day that for years, for centuries, and for years to come was unexplained. This explosion was eventually explored after years to come. The explosion itself was described by a nearby bystander as the sky itself cracking in half, and that an unbearable heat was hitting him in the face, so hot that he felt his clothes were on fire and that he wanted to rip his clothes off to try and get away from them. And then, without warning, a massive thump sound is heard and the man is thrown. The man is flown multiple meters behind him. So this visible destructive shockwave hits the ground, and after years of no one wanting to go there for their own safety, it was explored, and there's footage of it that you can find in which there's trees that have been flattened to the ground. Whatever caused this explosion caused mass devastation, and we were lucky it happened in an unpopulated place. What the theory is behind it is that, again, it was another asteroid. It was an asteroid that was so weak that when it entered our atmosphere, the heat and the pressure and the power behind it was too much, and it exploded. And this explosion happened so close to our ground that it created an explosion and a shockwave that flung anything in the nearby area to the ground and destroyed mass land. And it's been brought up with the American Congress that if something like this happened again in a populated area such as New York, there wouldn't be any New York left. The casualties will be in the tens of thousands. It would be unprecedented. I apologise, my TV is just turned off. I'll be right back. Get rid of that blue light. Bit of lighting should fix this all up. Oh yeah, there we are. Much better, much more professional feeling. Right, where were we? More apocalypse. Where's the apocalypse going? Let's think more closer to our time. Does everyone remember back when that asteroid nearly hit Russia itself? It always seems to be including America and Russia with these things. I mean, they are big continents, but at this point, I think they're asking for it. I'm joking. No, it just everyone's seen the footage of this massive asteroid hitting the atmosphere with such power that it made night into day, and the fire coming from it as it exploded and shattered and turned into tiny pieces was so bright that you couldn't look at it, that it caused physical damage, it caused shockwaves. This massive chunk of just land that was flying at thousands of miles per hour happened to come into our atmosphere and just happened to be so weak that it didn't hit the ground. And when it did hit the ground, there was just rubble. There wasn't anything large enough to make a dent. Unless some poor bastard got hit by one of those shards, and then that I can imagine that's the world's most godlike bullet, and just I don't know. I think that might just be destiny at its own point. If you are that unlucky, if you are, I apologise in advance. That's not a nice way to go. But it makes you think of the many different ways that the world could end. I mean, again, let's go back to 2012 when we had all the scares. There was been the fights between America and North Korea. That's still going on. The fights that are happening between America and Russia, and the tensions that we're having. I mean, just thinking economically, everyone thinks apocalypses are the downfall of an instant destruction of a city, or the instant destruction or inability to regain society. Well, we're in a state like that when it comes to the economy, are we not? Got to think of it that way. Our economy is going down the plumbing as well. And if that goes down and we keep on getting inflations, there's going to be a point where any currency is useless. That in itself can create its own apocalypse. And it's one of the many ways that we are slowly ignoring our problems until it's becoming too big to ignore. I'm out of things to say now. I apologise. Oh yeah, my inspiration for today's video was live stream, I should say, was a video by a YouTuber called Let Me Know, which is the grazed by the apocalypse, in which he is listing many different ways that we've been so very close to the end of our own life that we haven't even noticed it, and it's been by pure chance that we've survived. I mean, think of many different more iconic apocalypses that have happened. The Great Plague, the Black Plague. If we weren't lucky, that thing could have quite easily destroyed civilization as we knew it. It already took out nearly all of the population. It was by pure chance that we survived it. There was no antibodies that were made. There was no cure that was made until centuries ago. After we just happened to survive it, that we happened to get past this deadly plague that was destroying life as we knew it. Not only ours, but livestock and other animals, because they acted as carriers. We had to get rid of them as well. What people don't realize is that we are in constant danger, and that is something we just ignore. We don't think of the bigger picture behind it. For example, a good reason for this is the media's depiction of space. We think that it's this large, empty cosmos, and in many ways, yes, it is. There's not much between. However, the amount of potential dangerous objects that are flying through there that we know of. There are, the possibility of aliens and interdimensional and other big things, scary things, the Men in Black type stuff. But there's also, again, it's the big A, the asteroids. It's these flying rocks that just have nowhere to go but fall, and they don't care what's going through us. There's no way of stopping these, and there's been many, many times where these things have grazed our own Earth, and we've barely even noticed. We were very lucky to have seen what had happened in Russia and survived the next day. We were incredibly lucky that some idiot didn't set off a nuclear war because he saw birds in a radar. We are lucky that some douchebag captain didn't start the end of everything because he didn't like the way his submarine was being treated. We are lucky to be here now. And it's stuff like this in which, yes, it's always very, very easy to talk about all the bad shit that's happening. But we're here. Against all of these odds, we are here. And we need to make the best of that. We need to learn from these mistakes. And that's the things that people don't realize. But there's many more to come from us as humans go. There's so much more of there's so much more for us to give. We just need to we just need to learn from our mistakes. I think I'm going to have to end it early there tonight, guys. I apologize for all the inconvenience that's been happening as of late. We've had a few problems behind the set, but we promise this will be sorted out. We'll be back to normal as soon as we can. The show must go on, and we are more than happy to keep you guys entertained. Hopefully we have a proper show soon. Sorry we couldn't have done it in the radio show today. Sadly, with it being Bank Holiday Monday, we did not have access to the radio studio. However, if you want everything that is creepy and conspiracy filled, please follow us on our Facebook, obviously here on our YouTube. Follow us here, in which we will always be posting everything that we record and that we broadcast. We've got an Instagram for you guys to follow. All the links will be down below, as well as the links to the video that inspired today's conversation by Lemino. Give him a watch. He's a very good content creator. I highly recommend. But for now, guys, stay creepy. Have a good night, and we'll get back to you soon. Bye, guys.